apparently Millennials as a generation, which is a group of people who were born approximately 1984 and after, are tough to manage. And they're accused of being entitled and narcissistic, and self-interested, unfocused, lazy. But entitled is the big one.
Surprise, motherfucker.
What's going on, everybody? It's your host, Andrew Jakubitz, with episode 12 of the Casual Millennials podcast. Happy to be in your ears, in your car, wherever you're listening. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Eric. Eric, how's life?
Life is great, man. Doing a lot of fall things recently. Went apple picking. Super fun. First time I've done that in a while. Yeah.
You know they pay people to do that. That is someone's job in the normal, in a farm.
That's true. I've never thought about it that way.
Anyway, sorry, I'm taking away from our lovely guest here tonight. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce.
So tonight we have with us Jessica Omelian, who is recently moved to Racine. Maybe not too recent anymore, but new to Racine. She has, you tell you about yourself.
Sure. So like Eric mentioned, I'm Jessica, and I moved to Racine about 4 years ago now.
So not too new.
Well, I think in the scheme of things, Racine is one of those towns where you're either born and raised there or you're transplanted there for some reason or another. So
true. And I was born there, actually, if we don't know that.
Yeah, I love that. It's a cool connection. So, yeah, what would you like to know?
What brought you to Racine?
My now fiance brought me to Racine. So I've kind of grown up all over the United States, ended up coming back to Wisconsin in 2008, went to college at UW-Milwaukee, and shortly after met my boyfriend, now fiance, and so he's born and raised Racine too. So yeah, after a while it just became practical, I suppose, to move down to Racine, and I will admit I hated it for a long time. So it's not something I usually say, but it took me a long time to get used to Racine and really acclimate myself to the community and the culture there. And it's kind of funny because I always say I'm not new to being new, but Racine was kind of, I don't know, a small world of its own, right? So, yeah.
That's pretty cool. So walk us through that. So, I mean, dive some more into those details. You grew up all over the world, so like why? Or all over the country, why were you moving around? And then where did you go to UW before? I'm very curious on that.
Sure. So I was born in Pennsylvania, and my dad is a computer programmer. And so when us kids were young, he was kind of chasing work, and so we moved around a lot, mostly around the Metro DC area, and ended up in Wisconsin for a job. At the time, he was working for M&I Bank, and so my parents got divorced, and so my dad always says, like, we weren't meant to be in Wisconsin, but because of the divorce, they just stayed put because of the kids. And so I grew up dancing ballet from a very, very young age, and so that's where a lot of like the traveling and moving came from.
You can't just over something. She was a professional, some type of dancer.
Yeah, ballet dancer. So I grew up dancing ballet. Mostly my training started at Milwaukee Ballet. So I started like really, really young. And I guess going back, my grandpa, so my dad's dad, he was very involved in the arts, and he ended up having 3 boys. And so they never really, I don't know the full story, but I don't think he ever really pushed them into doing ballet. And I think obviously times have changed and there's more cultural norms around men being professional ballet dancers. But back then, I don't think he wanted to, I guess, touch that subject. But so me being the first granddaughter, it was like this, like,
The floodgates open.
oh my God. Yeah. Like I have pictures of me like 6 months old, like with ballet shoes on, and it's like, ugh. So fast forward, like very young, like as soon as I could get in dancing, that was what I was supposed to do, right? And so did that, progressed at Milwaukee Ballet, got to a point where I kind of hit the limit on the training that was provided here in Milwaukee. So for high school, I actually moved to Florida and went to a professional training school. So for all intents and purposes, it's a boarding school for ballet. So my parents stayed here. I lived in Florida. we went to like a public school for 4 hours a day just to get our academics in. And then like when the normal kids went to lunch, then we went back to the dorms and got ready and trained late until the evening. So high school danced 6 days a week, and because of that training, then I was able to get a job dancing for a ballet company in Maryland right out of high school. So yeah, back to your point, professional ballet dancer.
I don't know why you don't lead with that.
I don't know. It's a weird thing. I guess there's not many people who are, right? So came a time in my life where that was no longer my goal. And so, yeah, I moved back to Wisconsin in 2008 and had no clue what I wanted to do, and just kind of thought to myself, like, well, I probably should go to college, right? Like, I didn't go to college right out of high school, and I don't know, like, my whole life was ballet. Like,
Right.
My whole life, that's all I thought. Like, okay, I was going to dance until, you retire, which is like 40 years old. As a ballet dancer, your body only can take so much. And so, yeah, I went to college. My first semester, I literally like opened up the book of just all of the classes and like circled stuff that I was like, that seems cool. And it was like criminal justice, and I think I took a public art class, and sign language was one of them. I think growing up, I remember like my mom just working on the alphabet with us, and so I kind of gravitated towards that. I thought it was a very cool language, but the more I kind of dug into it, a culture that went along with it as well. And so that's actually what my degree's in, is sign language interpreting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so ballet dancer to sign language interpreter. I guess another fun fact that Eric and I touched on briefly is I worked for Apple for about 8 years. So I was that person behind the Genius Bar, one of those fun tech nerds.
Nice. When was that in your life?
So that was right around the time the first iPhone launched, so 2007.
Okay.
And then whatever, fast forward 8 years. And so kind of after I stopped dancing, before I really knew what I wanted to do, paid my way through college, working for Apple, and incredible company, especially during that time. Steve Jobs was still alive, and I think that's what really taught me about customer service and company culture.
It's an awesome company to learn it from.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I don't think I really appreciated it at the time. I didn't know what was being built. I was just kind of a worker bee in the scheme of things. But now seeing how Apple has grown and recognizing that a small group of us were kind of in the grassroots, like ground floor of that, it was super cool.
So what type of actual company culture did you kind of go through and witness on that level of it?
Sure. So Apple has a at that time, I can't speak to it anymore, but at the retail level, retail was new for Apple at that time. And so we had very detailed, we called it our Credo card, but like literally things down to how we presented ourselves. They used to say, like, you're always on stage. Like, as soon as you come from the back of the house to the front of the house, like, you're on stage. Like, you're representing the company. You're the face of the company. But also how to treat our customers. And as Apple grew, that became more and more important, especially on the tech side of it. When you're in tech support, you can just imagine, like, all of us, I think, have had that call center experience, and it's not fun. But you have this brand new product that is supposed to be amazing, and you want people to feel that way. So just going back to treating people like how people really should be treated, and it's not about the device, it's about the person. And I don't know, it was looking back, it was super incredible, and I really miss it. But I think it was a great place to be at that time in my life.
No, it's really cool.
Yeah.
So, you have a question? Cool. So you were dancing professionally.
Mm-hmm.
What changed, or what light bulb went on your head, or what switch flipped that made you change your mindset, that realized that this is not what you want to do for the rest of your life?
It's a really good question. I hope my dad's not going to listen to this. As you can imagine, there was so much energy. Like, literally, I was dancing 6 days a week. My parents were driving me here and there, and every summer I was in some other state or some other country performing, there was like a whole crew of people just like cheering me on. And so I think the day that I was like, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore, it was like an outpouring of questions and disappointment and anger, and not from me, you know, and of course it was a big decision. But my junior year of high school, I actually ended up having hip surgery. And so super long recovery just coming back from that. I mean, my high school years were like an equivalent of like a professional athlete, like training every single day. And I think a huge disruption to that routine was tough. And then just obviously like the mindset of getting back to where I was, I would say like that was like the peak time to be auditioning to really that was like the springboard to get into whatever company you wanted. And so I never felt the same like after that surgery. Like even though I recovered, I think my body moved differently, and I wouldn't say like I lost the passion for it. I think once a ballet dancer, like always a ballet dancer, but internally there was like this struggle. And the more I thought about it, the more I saw other professional ballet dancers like trying to make their way through life, like starting a family, finances. It's literally your whole life. You are at the studio 6 to 7 days a week. You make very little money. You have very little time outside of your art. And so I knew that I wanted to have a family. I knew that I wanted to be financially stable. Growing up, we weren't. And so, you know, I remember asking my mom to like buy Nikes or Crayola color pencils. And like now, as vain or like whatever materialistic as that sounds, like I always hated that, like, no, we can't afford that, right? And so like going forward, I was like, I want to be able to enjoy my life and travel and all of these things. And I didn't see myself doing that as a dancer. And so I guess as tough as that decision was, I kind of knew it was time to leave it while I still loved it, instead of staying in it because everyone else wanted me to stay in it and end up resenting it or feeling like I was wasting potential, I guess.
Okay. So do you ever regret that decision, or do you think you got out at the perfect time?
I think that's hard. I think, yes, of course I regret it, because I think like, well, what if I stayed in, or what if I don't know, moved to a different company, or who knows? Like I was 3 years out of surgery at that time. Like, does it ever get better? I don't know. So I think I'm happy with where I ended it, because now I look back and it's all positive. Do I miss it? Yes.
Of course.
But do I think I would be in the same place I am today? No way. Like just as a person.
Right.
I mean, that whole experience and self-discovery has made me grow into who I am. I was always a ballet dancer growing up. I didn't know anything different. It's just what I did, and I never really thought about it. And
it's true.
Yeah.
Did it fracture your relationship at all with your dad, or your dad's side of the family, or anything?
I think like at the time, like now I don't feel it, but like I remember him sending me books in the mail, like The Psychology of Dancers and like all of this stuff.
Really?
He's like, I think you should read this. I'm like, thanks, Dad. You know, I think I still have it on the bookshelf. But like, you know, I think he just didn't understand my thought process. And I mean, fair enough, right? Like I was not even 20 years old. And so, I don't know. I think it's probably okay of him to have questioned my decision for sure.
I suppose, but you're an adult at that point, right? I feel like that period of self-discovery you talk about, like a lot of people just get to kind of either automatically experience as they go through college or even high school, because you were just heads down in ballet, right? Like that's kind of hard when that's all your whole life has been to not have that experience, like to taste something else. That had to be tough. But sign language, that's crazy. Why would your mom teach you the alphabet? Why was she doing that when you were at a young age? Was somebody deaf in your family, or was it just something that she did?
No, I don't even know why, and I don't think I've ever asked her, but I just remember like it was like our secret language. You know, we could spell things to each other from across the room, and no one in our family was deaf, and I don't even think I had really been exposed to deaf culture like prior to that. But
my mom did the same thing for me too.
Yeah.
I have no clue why either.
Now I think there's like baby sign, and there's this hype around it, and I mean, it's not just hype, there's science behind it. You know, kids can receptively pick up sign language and their motor skills develop before they learn to speak. So you'll see, kids signing more or milk or things like that just because they can communicate with their hands before they can actually formulate words. But I don't think that was her intention. Maybe it was. I don't know.
You'll have to ask.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got sidetracked though. So you go to college, you get a sign language degree. Now what? Now where does your career, where does your life take you? You've kind of gone 4 years, I'd imagine, at college, right? How was that time and then after?
Yeah, that time was great. I think that's kind of what a lot of people got to experience in high school, that freedom. And
Not Brady Street though. Hopefully that was only college.
yeah, that was only college for me. I mean, maybe some people. But yeah, for me, that was only college.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess out of college, I got a job working for a multi-family housing developer. Very weird, but this particular company focused on housing that had some kind of social need component behind it. So they built housing for veterans or, children aging out of the foster care system, adults with autism. And so one huge part of their portfolio was deaf housing. And so because deaf people they have very particular needs when it comes to communication and culture. And so they have built multiple housing communities for deaf people to live in, down to like the architecture where they've decreased vibrations in the floor, because obviously when you don't have one of your senses, the others are heightened. And they opened up sight lines so people, deaf families could communicate across rooms. Us, we probably just yell to our parents or whatever, but they needed that visual communication. And so prior to me coming on board, they had just contracted out interpreters, but that industry, very, very niche and so many acronyms and just technical terms that they decided it was time just to bring a sign language interpreter on full time so that they could be immersed in the company culture. They can actually understand all of the terms that are trying to be translated, right? Because if you can't understand what they're talking about in English, how are you going to put it into a different language? And so, yeah, I worked for them for a couple of years, absolutely loved it. And that's kind of where I got the bug for real estate. Although I was on the multifamily side, I learned just a lot about development. And so it came a time where I was moving from Milwaukee to Racine. The commute got to be too much, and I was like, I'm not commuting anymore. As much as I love sign language, as much as I love the company I worked for, I just gave it up. And so I ended up starting my business as a real estate agent in Racine.
And now you love it.
Oh yeah, I totally love it. Yeah.
So we're just going to breeze by the fact that you just went from being an employee to now an entrepreneur. What happened there? What switched in you where you're like, I'm not going to look for another job. I'm just going to make my own job.
Exactly that. Like, I hated working for someone else. I hated walking down the hallways, seeing people on Facebook, getting paid more money than me, even though I was busting my ass. And I don't know, you guys kind of heard a snippet of my story, but I grew up super disciplined, super passionate. I don't know, I don't know why it didn't happen sooner, I guess. But coming back to like entrepreneur, I guess with real estate, I didn't really think of myself as an entrepreneur. The way the laws in real estate, I had to be affiliated with a firm for the first 2 years. So started out with Shore West, now I'm with Berkshire Hathaway, but I guess I didn't really understand what entrepreneurship was until I opened up my co-working space in Racine.
Mm-hmm.
Even then, I guess I didn't really like assign that label to myself. It still sounds weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, that switch from an employee to whatever we want to call this entrepreneurship thing I'm doing, like it's
CEO.
It's yeah, CEO. Hell yeah! Like it's incredible, and I don't know. I wish this was like my life back when I was like 18, and I wish someone said you could do this, or this is even an option, right? I mean, my parents definitely never said you can own your own business, and so now I'm learning what that means.
That's pretty cool. I would love to. Have you thought about it all about dancing since then? Like going back to like, do you do dance classes at all? Do you thought about teaching at all? Like certain things of that nature?
Yeah, I've thought about both of those things. Pretty I don't know. I feel so bad saying this, but like, I don't think I could ever teach.
Why?
I don't have a lot of patience.
Okay.
And I don't think my heart's in it. I think I loved performing. I don't know that I could ever take the time out of my day to do that. Like, I guess my heart's just not there.
I get it.
Yeah, but in terms of taking classes and such, I did, especially when I was in college. I did a lot at Milwaukee Ballet, I did a lot of dance works. I don't know, I think it was like emotional for me. It was understanding like my body physically can't do the things that it used to do. In order to get it to do those things, I'd have to be in class again 6 days a week, and that's super expensive. Yeah, especially when you're not getting paid for it. So, yeah, as much as I love it, I don't think it was a thing I could do casually anymore. I think if people get into it later in life, it's a really great workout. It can be a lot of fun, but for me, it kind of just brought back like that reality, like, hey, you could have done this, but you didn't, or, you know, so.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk more, unless you have anything more about dancing.
I'd go for it.
Okay. Let's jump back to, you just briefly mentioned this one too. You own a co-working space.
Yeah.
So let's talk about not only how that happened, but let's talk about what you bought and what you turned it into.
Yeah. Okay. I bought a building.
What?
Yeah, sounds so weird. But
Did you sell it to yourself?
I did.
Nice.
Yeah. Which in retrospect, I wish I wouldn't have done. There was so much emotion, and I wish I could have just like told my real estate agent, like, tell them this, you know. But like, yeah.
You had to be that
Being
person.
the buyer and the agent, it was a fine line. So.
I never thought about that.
Yeah. Me either. I was like, oh, I'll just get a commission check. This is great, right? But anyways, yeah, so I bought a building July of last year, so July 2018. It used to be a holistic wellness center. The building's about 100 years old, and it's been so many things, obviously, prior to that, but it was a shit show. Like, oh my gosh, I wish I could show you guys pictures of what it looked like. It was just hideous. And so we spent about 6 months just gutting the place, really turning it into a beautiful space where people can come and work. Yeah.
And it looks absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank
And
you.
you've showed me like before and after pictures. And you guys have done like awesome stuff. Like you tore down that one wall.
Yeah.
Talk more about that.
So the way the space is set up, there's a shared space right when you walk in. So if you wanted to grab a seat for the day, you know, you're more than welcome to park it there. But there was this room in the center of the space that used to be 2 rooms. So it's divided by a lovely wood paneled wall. And I hated that the second room, which is the most central room in the space, didn't have any sunlight. And for me, sunlight's really important to work. It just signals that part of my brain, like get up, get going, you know, hustle. And so that room just felt so dark. And so my boyfriend at the time, I was like, can we just take down this wall? We never had plans. We've never done a remodel before. And so the fact that he was like, yeah, sure, it's not a load-bearing wall, I was like, yes. But I think that kind of opened up a can of worms. You know, he always teases me when we first bought the building. I was like, well, we'll just paint some stuff and it'll look fine. Yeah, no, ripping down walls, yeah, exposing ceilings. It looks
like,
wonderful now.
Completely tore down a wall panel too, and like used that for flooring or something, right?
Yeah, we did. When we started gutting, it's crazy how much stuff comes out of such a small space, right? And so as we were taking trips to the dump, I was like, I feel incredibly guilty putting all this stuff into a landfill. And so I started to kind of change my mindset a little bit. And as much as I hated that wood paneling, it was perfectly fine, right? Like it was rough cut, raw cedar. And so instead of like taking it off, we ended up just flipping it the other way and repurposing it as the entranceway into our space. And it's gorgeous, you know, right when you walk in, there's like Edison bulbs and it's warm lighting, and then you just get those cedar tones of the wood. And yeah, one of the other floors we ended up just painting and making it into like a paneled wall. And so yeah, we found little things where we could to kind of just repurpose those things. I don't think anyone would necessarily know unless we told them, but I think for me, just from an environmental standpoint, I felt a little bit better about how much stuff we were taking out of the building. So
Yeah, it's awesome now. It really is.
And now every time you walk in, you look down and you're like, I remember I took down that wall. That's
yeah,
kind of nice.
for sure. And that's like a lot of people's favorite feature of the building, because we ended up making it kind of, they were custom doors, but so those two rooms could join into one.
Sure.
And so a lot of people love that. But yeah, I guess I never would have really thought about it, but had so much help and so many people just to kind of help me sort through the vision along the way. But I think it turned out wonderfully.
It did.
Yeah.
Definitely.
How has business ownership been for you? A learning experience, I imagine?
Oh my God, yeah. Like going back to what I said, I never thought I'd be a business owner.
Yeah.
Even now it sounds weird when you say like, oh, you're the CEO or you own a business. And I always say it kind of just happened to me. Like it was never really the plan. But now that it's here, it's incredible, and there's so much freedom. But yeah, like from July till January 2019, it was just like that hustle. Like every day I woke up, went to the building. We didn't get home until 2 or 3 in the morning. My fiance was still working his corporate job, and so he would go to work like 8 to 5 and then come over and help me. And I don't know how we did it, but it was incredible. But yeah, then January we opened our doors for business, and it's definitely been a learning experience. Good and bad, right?
Sure, as always.
But I think a lot of it just ties into listening to what our members want. That was huge for me. I know that co-working is awesome. I didn't even know it was really a thing until I started researching that I wanted to open up this quote unquote, I was calling it workspace at the time. So yeah, I didn't even know that co-working was a thing. The more I researched it, I was like, yeah, this is a really cool business model. I think Racine needs something like this. And yeah, like I said, it just snowballed from there.
What are the types of things they wanted, or like that you hear from people?
Yeah, so we didn't really plan for storage lockers. I guess when I thought of co-working, I thought it more of like these nomads, and they didn't really want to keep anything at the space. But yeah, the more and more members that joined the space, we realized maybe it's a team of people and they want to just leave a file, and so that they both have access to it. Or some people like having their own particular office supplies, and so they wanted a place just to keep their stuff and keep it secure. We've also had people ask for like podcasting equipment, video equipment, and so we're kind of trying to adapt to that and figure out what people want.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it just centered around technology, and which is funny because of my background, but I knew people wanted options, and so we kind of let them choose what they wanted, let them tell us what they wanted, and went from there.
So owning a business as a real estate agent, did that tie to opening a co-working space? Was there a lot of things that transferred over there, or was it completely different?
And before you answer, what's the co-working space called? I feel like we've been talking about it now for like 15 minutes and we haven't mentioned that, so please plug it and where it is.
So the co-working space is called Atmosphere Collaborative Space, and it's in Racine. We're just a block off of Main Street, so you can take a little walk and see Lake Michigan. It's beautiful.
It's awesome.
Yeah, just a block and a half from the courthouse, so it's been awesome for lawyers. And just about 2 blocks from what we call Restaurant Row, which is 6th Street. So if you need to meet a client, you can pop over, grab some lunch. But the difference between atmosphere and real estate, I guess I didn't really make that connection until relatively recently. Being a startup, I was more concerned about making sure that there was a culture in the business, making sure that the members were happy, because I felt like member retention was huge for me. And so I wouldn't say that I really started running it like a business until about 6 months in.
You're talking about Atmosphere?
I'm talking about Atmosphere.
Okay.
Whereas real estate, I mean, that's my livelihood. If I don't sell a house, I don't get paid.
Mm-hmm.
So that for me, just my mindset was a little bit different. I definitely ran it like a business. Do I still give a wonderful customer experience? Yes. But I think it's different. That's your paycheck. And it's not like you can sit at a desk for 2 weeks and click buttons and still get a paycheck, right? Like you have to be out there. You have to be sourcing your leads. That is my business. And so coming into Atmosphere, I think maybe in hindsight, I was running it like a business because I didn't want to be taking my real estate money, like my money, into this.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be profitable, or at least breaking even, right? So I think that's the scary thing a lot of people don't talk about with entrepreneurship or startups. Like, it has to make money. So now I run my business a lot like a business, and although I don't forget about the culture, it's really important. A lot of people don't think when you're an entrepreneur or you're a startup that you don't want it to be all about the culture, right? Like, that's huge and that's important every single day. But it was also important for me to make sure that it was profitable. It is a business, and I think that was a huge learning curve for me in the beginning, finding that balance and understanding it's okay for it to make money, right? Like, you're in this to run a business. You're not in it just for a fun community place, even though that's what it is.
Sure.
So,
Definitely. So owning this business now, so running this business now, it's been, what, 10 months, 9 months-ish of actually it being open. What have you learned through that process so far?
it's a hell of a lot of work.
Is it more work than you thought it was going to be?
Totally.
Yeah.
But I think there's the difference, right? Like, I'm doing real estate and this. And so I think if Atmosphere was my only focus, it would be so incredible.
Well, and you do
And
a lot of
that's-
stuff that you probably wouldn't have to do if you didn't want to do, like having events there. Like, that's something that, I mean, it's great for it, and it's
Sure.
definitely a plus, but it's like, creating content as a business owner. Like, you don't have to do that, but it's something that benefits it,
Yeah, and that actually, events were one of my main focuses because, like I said, when I started researching co-working spaces, every year there's an organization that puts out a report that is a result of people who use co-working spaces, their survey answers. And so I kind of took that, and the glaring gap was that they wanted that feel of corporate culture, meaning holiday parties, like that water cooler conversation in a co-working space. They wanted to hang out with people while they work. And so that's one thing I really missed when I left my corporate job, was just being around people, going to events. And so I started working from home, which I thought was like going to be the best thing in the world. And then I ended up hating it. Like, I ended up talking to my dog probably more than I should. And doing laundry. Like, there was just so many distractions that I didn't anticipate. And so moving from my house to coffee shops, it was better. I got to hear the laughter, I got to hear the chatter, but I also was paying like $5 a day for a coffee at minimum, because then I got hungry and then I ate lunch. And so I think for me, that transition helped me kind of build the co-working space I wanted it to be. And so, yeah, like you said, there's a lot of things that we don't have to do, but I kind of saw the writing on the wall. People still wanted to hang out with other people. Work's important, but so is a happy life, right? And so if you're not happy, you're not going to be productive at work. And so, yeah, that's a huge push around events and just social nights and making it feel like you're all on the same team, even though it might be social media marketing guys or a lawyer or a civil engineer. Like, you're all in it together.
Oh, definitely. That's something that, so I was in a very similar position to you. Well, I don't say very similar, but I did something kind of like you did. I quit my job, and I was working at home for a while.
Yeah.
And it drove me crazy, so then I started working out here, the Hive, and also whenever you opened, we actually right after, I feel like we came and started. Kevin lives in Racine, so we started coming down by you too. And it's so nice to just have those separate spaces. And I talk about this all the time. I can work from home, but I am not nearly as productive. And my dog is there.
Yeah.
And you just have all these other distractions. And something that I didn't realize at first is, if you have a fiance or a significant other that's around, they work a normal 9 to 5, and let's say you're doing laundry during the day, and you don't think about it like, oh, this is taking time away from my working time. Mm-hmm. You do all that work, you spend 3 hours on running errands, whatever it is, and it's like, okay, I'm going to work from 3 p.m. until 8 p.m. And then they get home, and then it's like, okay, well now, or me as a roommate or roommates. You know, it's like, oh, they get home, now we can do stuff or talk or any other distraction humanly possible. It's just like those little things that help so much.
I think co-working spaces are quite like just, they're in their own little void because this culture has gone to such remote work in corporate culture as well as entrepreneurship and any other sense of work. And I think some people really glamorize it, like, oh, working from home is so much better, you have this and that. But like the need to be around other people is just so inherent in human beings that like the fact that co-working spaces are becoming bigger, it just proves that. Like even if I'm working on something completely different than you are, it's still nice to be next to you, talk about the Packer game, talk about how your weekend was, just random small talk that just gets it out of your system, and then you're able to kind of sit back and refocus. It's kind of funny that way.
For sure. And something too, it's like, in a weird way, it's kind of like an accountability booster. Like you have someone that may not work for you, with you, anywhere, doing anything towards you, but you're not going to sit there just on your phone, just like, or doing whatever it is you're doing on your computer. You're not going to watch a movie here. You know what I mean?
True.
Like you have in my office is half my bedroom. You know, it's half the bedroom, little part office.
Yeah.
And if I'm working from home, I'm staring at my bed. It's like, oh, you know what sounds really nice right now? A nice 5-minute nap. And I don't do that, but if I were to,
Yeah, you do.
We all do.
Let's be honest here.
But you know, I always try not to. Like, and I learned that is one thing I learned really early on. It's like, do not let yourself do that. Like, the minute you do, your entire day is just shit.
And I think that's a huge point. Like working for yourself, you can sleep till noon if you want, right? But
you can. If you're going to work, as long as you get your shit done, it doesn't matter when you get it done.
Yeah,
There's
or
something
you
to be
get in
said
that
about that.
habit. Like no one's like, hey, why were you late for work today?
Right.
So I think going back to like, what have you learned, or what does it feel like to be a business owner? Like if something goes wrong, it's your fault. Like everything is on you, which is so freeing.
So I walked in here and you were talking about this podcast like idea in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So I said, don't put that on there because people are going to steal it, and you told me to save it for later. So this is later.
No, I think so. I don't know how much you read or how much you try to expand your mind, but there's this mentality of a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset, right?
Okay.
So you had said, don't talk about that because someone's going to steal the idea, right? And I used to be that way. And the more I got into owning my own business, I decided, you know what, like there's other co-working spaces. Fine. Like I'm never going to be the only one. And so I shouldn't like hoard all of these ideas that I have just because they're my ideas and I don't want anyone else to steal them. Like
Fair enough.
put them out into the world, right? Because you will start to realize more people will gravitate towards these ideas, and you will find like so many people will be so supportive. And okay, if they steal your idea, great, but they're not going to do it as good as you are because you're the one who had the idea. Right? So you have that passion, you had the idea, you're going to do it awesome. But you know what? Like someone might hear this episode and be like, dude, that is a freaking cool idea. Like, let's join forces, right? Now you have more energy, more capital, more brain power, more everything. So I think if you have an idea, put it out there. Like the universe is going to surround you with the people who need to come in at the right times, and it's going to explode into what it was meant to be.
Like
yeah, and so that came up because we were talking about having podcasting equipment at Atmosphere,
right?
And I think it's a great idea. Like, podcasting is becoming so big and so relevant. Going back to
so easy too, you know.
Yeah,
but
sure.
not. It's easy, but it's not. So there's low barrier to entry, but no education on what to do. So like I have friends that have their own podcast right now on your T's and Q's. Check it out. It's really good, but they can't get on Apple Music right now or Apple Podcast. It's a freaking process. I had to figure it out on my own with my other podcast. Like the picture that you put for your logo needs to be a certain size. So I just made mine gigantic, and like I think it still hasn't been updated, so it's only like half of my picture on there because I was just trying to figure it out to even get on there. And then on top of that, like the platforms that people use, there's so many different options. You don't necessarily know what you're getting yourself into. You don't even know if you own your RSS feed, which then owns your voice and your episodes. So there's a lot of different things that need to be taken into context or into thought when you do this stuff that nobody thinks about. Not to mention, like this is a $130 mic. Most people who are starting a podcast don't really want to blow $130 on a microphone or get a subscription service to a recording software. And then it's like then what do you do? So I think it's easy to do, but it's also hard at the same time.
Hey, I didn't know. I mean, that's why I have you.
Hey, I guess we were talking before you got here. I was like, I don't even know what I bring to the table anymore because he built our website. You handle a lot of our content and all that stuff. So I guess I brought something to the table. That's good.
I would have no clue how to do this. No, that's a good point, though. And that's a good point with, like, literally everything with starting a business, whether it's simply as a podcast or starting a co-working space or being a real estate agent or whatever it is. Because you have no clue. Like, you might think, this is super easy. And then you go through setting up an LLC or just starting up a podcast. And this stuff, in my opinion, is, I don't want to say easy, but quote unquote easy once you do it for the first time. Just because you know what to do or who to turn to or where to go for questions. Like if I ever started so funny story, I don't think we've ever mentioned this on here. I started a landscaping business like when I was in high school. And I had to like have my stepdad and I do it because he was old enough and I couldn't file an LLC and all this shit. But like I learned that whole process when I was 16. I was old enough to drive, so around then. But like that was just something to do in the summer. So you learn this stuff, and it's stuff that you don't really realize how valuable it is until you do it.
Yeah.
Or like what you're saying on the podcast.
One of the best quotes I heard was from Jocko Willink, who's a former Navy SEAL, who's super motivational and like really interesting to listen to. But follow him on Instagram. He posts a picture of his watch every morning. He wakes up at 4:30 in the morning every morning and goes to work out. A lot of stuff. But I think it was him. He said like the first time you do something, it shouldn't feel that way, or it shouldn't feel like it's the first time you're doing something, because you should just practice and train like they do in the Navy SEALs and in the Marines. Everything they do, they train, they repeat, so that in the actual moment, it shouldn't feel like it's the first time you're actually doing it. So that was kind of an interesting thought, because there is ways that you could do a practice podcast. You could do it with somebody else. You could, train, and I say train, but look up how to do LLCs or talk to people who have, right? Those are certain things I think you can help.
That's interesting.
It's a good quote, but not always the most practical.
No, yeah. It's definitely for a Navy SEAL. Like you don't want someone who's like,
and a doctor.
I'm just going to do it by learning, or a doctor.
Gosh.
First time, let's cut this heart open.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, certain things yes, other things obviously not.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't want to like completely contradict you, but I've always lived on like almost the exact opposite of the spectrum, because I learned by doing.
Sure.
And we were talking about this in I think episode 7, like learn by failure, growth by failure. I don't know. I like that quote, but it's really interesting.
So what's the biggest mistake you've made so far at Atmosphere?
Letting me and Kevin be members?
No.
Probably, because now you're here.
I think a lot of it is not understanding my finances sooner. I kind of jumped in and I led with the mentality like, hey, if I build it, they'll come build it, meaning the culture. I knew when I moved to Racine, I wasn't the only one who wanted a space like this. I knew, I wasn't alone. And so I kind of was huge just on like, let's talk to people, let's get involved in the community. But looking back, I didn't like work out the business model as much as I have it worked out now. And so I kind of wish I would have done that a little sooner. It all worked out in the end. It's a great place to be. It's profitable. It's a great business. But just understanding finance was my biggest mistake for sure. Luckily, it all worked out.
What do you think would have helped that? Like, if you look back at what would have prevented that, do you think it would have been a class in college or somebody saying, hey, did you look at your finances yet? Or asking what your business model was going to be?
Yeah, I think it would have been just not being afraid to ask for help.
Okay.
There's so many things, going back to failing or just trying it, there were so many things that I didn't know about starting a business. I didn't even know I needed an LLC. Like, I don't know, and so it was just me asking people like, hey, you've been in business, like, what did you do? How did this work? And pulling from different people, or, going to meet with the city and they're saying, hey, you have to go talk to so-and-so, and kind of very much so fumbling through that. I had no clue what it took. I had an idea. Everyone I told about the idea was like, yeah, you should totally do that. But like in the trenches, holy shit, like I had no clue what I was doing. And the fact that we even like exist now is crazy to me. Like, but it just took a village, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think, for me going back, I should have reached out. There's so many great resources out there, and I just never prioritized it, I guess. And so, yeah, that's been my big push probably since July or so, to actually like figure out what all these metrics mean. You know, what's a balance sheet, what's profit and loss. I was like, I know we're doing well because there's money in the bank and I'm not paying any of my own money, right? Like I was
That's all that
like,
matters.
it's working, you know? And now a mentor of mine, he always jokes, he's like, well, how do you know it's working? You know, you don't know your numbers. And I'm like, oh shit, you're right, you know? And so now we've worked through that and I understand it a lot better.
Do you have an accountant now?
I do have an accountant.
Okay, that's good. You're talking to one right now.
Oh,
If you didn't, I was going to be like, all right, well, I know people. Let me give you some numbers.
Yeah, but I think I wish I would have. I'm not a numbers person though, so of course I didn't lead with that. But as a business owner,
I find
if
that
I could do it all over again.
I find the best people, I find that the best owners of businesses and entrepreneurs, and this isn't for everybody, obviously, but I like the people I've met are always not finance focused, because I think if you are finance or you're accounting, you're taught to be so conservative. And you know the risks of everything. You know how much money you can lose if you go into business. You know the risks of having to claim bankruptcy and all that. So I think you have to be a risk taker. And most people in finance and accounting, I think, are not inherently, because they're in a very safe industry. But I don't know. Eric can correct me. He's at his own business and he's a finance major.
But
So
don't you see
I'm
the
the
flip
risky
side
one.
of that though?
Well,
you
Well,
know the
it's-
risk of how much money you can lose in a business, but you also have probably seen the success of people, right? Like,
Well, I'm a third generation now, quote unquote, entrepreneur in my family. So my grandma did, my dad did. So like I knew what it meant and like all that kind of stuff. So it's different for me, I would say. And I'm also just like a natural risky person. Like Kevin's the more safe one than I am. But yeah, I can't speak for most accountants or finance people.
I don't know. I just feel like most accountants are not out there starting their own businesses. But that's just me. Again,
No, yeah. Someone has to in order to keep hiring all these CPAs.
well, that's just because we'll always be needed. Because there's
Absolutely.
people starting businesses that don't know.
some people like me.
That's true.
Oh, man. Okay, so what's the plan for Atmosphere next? Are we franchising this thing and taking it to the moon? What's next?
Yeah,
It's funny to bring that up.
Yeah, funny you say that, but that's the new goal. That was never the intention when we first opened. But I would say in the first 6 months of us being open, we were approached by 4 people. And the first one, I kind of wrote it off. I was like, dude, I don't know. Like, would it be cool? Sure. But let me, at this point, I didn't even understand my finances, So I'm like, I don't know if that'll work. Can you, give me a little bit of time? And then the second person came around and I was like, wait, maybe this is a thing, right? And so that kind of planted the seed, I think. But then the more realistic these inquiries became, whether it was people with capital or people with the real estate, it's kind of got me thinking. And so now that I guess culture's there, finances are in place, I think for us the huge thing is just processes and making sure that what we have is able to be, kind of boxed up and hand it to someone. That's definitely the goal. We want to remain in smaller communities though, kind of like Racine. So just off of those little historic main streets, I don't think I necessarily want to, well, maybe now I can compete with WeWork, but I don't want to be,
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, they're doing great.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily want to be in Milwaukee or Chicago. I want to be in those little communities that are those in betweens.
Well, there's so many of them around.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's one that I've always thought about, and I don't know if there's one there now, but Oak Creek.
Sure.
Oak Creek is an awesome area.
Yeah.
There's so much going on there. OC.
Yeah, I love Oak Creek, and
And there's just a lot of areas like that.
Yeah.
I mean, Racine too,
Yeah.
So I think what you did is perfect.
thanks.
I was just thinking, that'd be difficult because I feel like culture is so specifically based on the people that are there. And Racine, and I think everybody listening in this room knows it has its very own specific culture, just because of the people that live there, the history there. So it'll be interesting. I'm very curious. I wish the best of luck. I think you're going to crush it. But I'm curious to see how you package up culture because it's such a broad word that just kind of gets blanketed, especially in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Which I know all too well with everybody's answers. I'm looking for a company with a great culture.
Sure.
Well, what the hell does that mean?
What that means to you means something different to me. But I
exactly.
think
Absolutely.
in Racine, obviously I'm not a Racine native, so it took me a long time to learn how Racine works or how the majority of Racine works. But I mean, a lot of our members, one in particular that I can think of, like, is a transplant too. So it's like, I don't think it's necessarily boxing it up, but being able to be in touch with the people who work out of the space and knowing who they are, knowing what they do, being that kind of sounding board for them, letting them give you their ideas and feedback, that's huge because you want them to think it's a great place to work. And what's a great place to work for you or Eric might be different between the two of you, but if I can incorporate both of those things, why wouldn't I? You know, so I think it's just staying true to the people who are working out of the space.
So more of a culture of the people who run it,
Yeah.
less the
Oh, for
culture
sure.
of the actual space itself. So I think
Yeah, I mean, you can create a beautiful space, but it really comes alive when people are in it. And
Yeah.
so what works in Racine might not work in Oak Creek, but as you start, I mean, marketing's one thing, but as you start learning who's working out of the space, getting to know them, being present, and just listening, you can build a culture around the people who are there for sure.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, and I think the type of people that want to work at a co-working space are the type of people that want to talk to one another and build that community and culture.
Yeah.
That's the way every co-working space I've been to, like if someone new is in or just sitting around, they come and introduce them to you if you don't already walk up to them. Like everyone has that mentality, which I think is really neat. Cool. Do you have anything else you want to say before we start asking some final questions?
No, shoot 'em.
Cool. One. So you went to college.
I did.
You got a sign language. I have no clue what any sign languages are.
That's okay.
You know this is I love you.
You probably know a few more, but it's okay.
Rude.
Okay.
That also means I love you, right? In Spanish?
Yeah, sure.
So, do you regret going to college? Would you do it again?
I think regret is a strong word. I would definitely not do it again.
This is number what, 2 or 3 now?
The second person.
The second person.
Well, I guess Martin said he didn't go to college, so that doesn't count.
It's not.
And the battery's dead. Well, it's fine. We have audio.
I have audio. Like if I could do it all over, I definitely wouldn't. I felt like the age I am, it was a huge push that you needed to go to a 4-year university. And I felt a lot of pressure. Like if you don't go to college, you're not going to get a good job. And it was just something I felt like I had to do. So if I could do it all over again, no way. I think it was probably the single most, I don't know, cumulative waste of money in my life.
Would you have met your fiance though?
Yep, I didn't meet him in college, so.
I thought I had her.
No, I mean, yes. I mean, college was great in the sense that I discovered who I was. I mean, I got to live in a great city, meet incredible people. But at the same time, I could have done that without college, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I could have done it at my job. I could have done it through networking groups.
I mean, so many people do it without college.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, yeah, if I could do it again, no way, I would not go to college. And I think, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. And then last question here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could go back and tell young Jessica, and young, whatever age you want to pick here, maybe just, in your professional dancing career, like what would you tell younger Jessica?
What advice would you give her?
Trust your gut. I think there were a lot of times in my life where I knew I should have been doing something different. Even though society says or my family says, just do what you want to do. Like it's as much as like this sounds cliche, like it's your life. And if you're not happy living it, then why the hell are you doing anything, right? And so, yeah, I think I let a lot of my fear of what my family wanted me to do guide my decisions. But at the end of the day, I ended up where I am now. I just wish I would have ended up there sooner. So I think if I could tell my younger self, I would say just go for it. Like you really have nothing to lose. It's worth it in the end. Just work hard, follow that path that you want to be on, and pivot when necessary, right? I don't know.
I love that.
I don't know how I'd answer that question. So that's a good answer.
We need to do that. We need to ask ourselves that.
Oh, okay.
We ask our new or every other guest this.
Okay, maybe another episode.
Not tonight.
That's not fair. You have time to think about it.
Exactly.
No, but I think so much of that is true. Like even I didn't tell my parents about my co-working space until probably a week before we opened. I was so scared of what my parents were going to say.
Like, they had no idea that you bought a building.
They had no idea that I bought a building. They had no clue. No clue. They had no clue I bought a building. They thought I was doing something because they had seen me post some things on Facebook Marketplace.
Oh.
So they were like, "Oh, that's weird. She's like selling some stuff," but they kind of chalked it up to like, something in real estate or whatever. But yeah, I remember like we went out to a movie and I brought them there, just like, "Hey, I want to show you something," and they were like, just deer in headlights, like, "You did what?" And I was like, "Oh shit, like I shouldn't have told them." And now they're super proud and stuff, but it was definitely just that conservative. You have to work on 8 to 5. You need a 401k, and so I grew up in that environment, and now I wish I could have just like shattered that mentality.
I think I was lucky. I was lucky with that aspect. Like I had all these people supporting me, so much so that it was like, holy shit, like maybe I should be the one questioning things. Like I started a business, was still working full time at Baird, and I started telling close friends and family, like, I think I'm going to do this. And I think out of the maybe 10 people I told, one was like, "I sure you want to do this? Like, you sure want to give up your paycheck?" The rest of them were like, "Hell yeah, I'm excited for you, blah blah blah." And like at that point, I was like, "This is weird." Like I was expecting some pushback.
I don't think people tell you how scary it is though when they're in it, or they tell you, but you don't believe them, right? Because like my fiance's parents they own a small business, and so I kind of got a little inspiration from that after I met him. But people don't tell you it's super freaking scary.
Yeah.
I don't know if it doesn't work, like what do you do? But I think that's the inspiration. Like you're gonna make it work.
Well,
that's the difference. Like in the mindset of an entrepreneur is like no matter what, like I'll make it work. If it's not working, I'm gonna change. And
you're not chasing a carrot. There's something chasing you, and it's what happens if you don't make it. So you're not going to let that happen.
Yeah,
right?
you can't. Yeah, failure I think is a strong word. I think we all fail many times, but like you're not gonna let it just collapse, right? Like you might fail, but then you pick yourself up again and keep going.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Cool. This has
Anything
been
else?
awesome. No, this has been great.
Yeah, this has been a fun conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely.
Thanks for coming.
Give people where they can find your stuff. You as a real estate agent, your co-working space. Do some plugs.
Oh gosh.
Do you know them all? Because Eric didn't for the first 4
Still
episodes.
Don't. We have a website for Atmosphere. It's atmosphereracine.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. You can just type in @atmosphereracine. And my real estate stuff, I also have a website. It's omelian.com. And I'm mostly on Instagram. It's @Omelian Berkshire Hathaway. And my Facebook is @OmelianRE for real estate.
Love it. Well, you can find me at Eric_Hess22. Pretty much anywhere, or just search Eric Hess.
Yep, and then I'm at Jakubitz, at JAKUBICZ on Twitter. That's where I'm most active. Andrew Jakubitz on Instagram. And
we have a website now.
I'm going to get there.
Well,
all right. Can I plug my socials first?
Well, I'm excited. I forgot about
Stepping on my toes. Okay.
Rewind.
Yeah, it's fine. You can find me at Andrew Jakubitz anywhere else. That's how you spell my last name. Just search it. I'm one of the only ones. All right. Do you want to introduce what you built?
No, I already did. It's too late. I want to hear your plug of the website.
Okay. So we have an awesome website made by Eric, who is very talented. The Casual Millennials Podcast.com, right?
Actually, Casual Millennials Podcast.
CasualMillennialsPodcast.com. Go there. It has links to all the different, basically big streaming platforms as well as our Instagram page. So if you didn't catch our Instagram name, you can go there and catch it as well. We will be posting other things there. This is new to us and what will be featured, but there will be content on there as well. And then November 14th, live podcast. We will be at the Hive in downtown Milwaukee for Startup Week, I believe.
Startup Week.
And we'll be doing 3 short podcasts, about 20 minutes each, different guests, and the third one will be picked from the crowd. So if you show up, you could potentially talk to us with a microphone in your hands.
Could be you.
You can also talk to us after. It won't matter. But we hope to see everybody out there.
Tickets are free.
Tickets are free. Just go sign up for it.
Are you going to announce who the other two are, or is it a secret?
So we only know one as
Yeah,
of
we
right
only know
now,
one right now.
who actually is the owner of the Hive.
Which is the
Oh,
co
And
racing
Storm
space.
events
Yeah,
and Rebel Squid Agent, like a bunch of stuff. The guy's awesome. It's gonna be really fun. Also, a Whitewater graduate, and the room we're sitting in right now is Esther Hall.
For those of us who went to Whitewater and know what that does to your body after you eat it.
It was a dining.
It is a dining hall. So thanks for listening to today's episode. We'll look for you next week when the next one comes out. Cheers.